in the shadowed world of the Middle Ages where faith and fear twined as tightly as lover and beloved, life was shaped by forces seen and unseen. Birth was both a beginning and an omen, a hopeful prayer threaded through with cries of pain. Love held the weight of duty, yet whispered of tender, stolen moments amidst the clamour of survival. Illness lurked at every corner, a feared stranger and a harsh teacher in equal measure. Death loomed close, a constant neighbour, but belief was the bridge that tethered souls between the worlds of flesh and the promise of eternity. Listen closely. The tale is both sombre and strangely wondrous. Let's embark on a journey to a world where the line between divine grace and mortal peril was as thin as a newborn's breath. In the medieval era, life unfolded in a delicate waltz of whispered prayers and anguished cries. With each baby's arrival, existence began as a fragile adventure, balanced precariously between pain and divine providence. Childbirth was a gamble against fate, a nerve-wracking ordeal steeped in the fear of the unknown. The air around a birthing scene felt like a heavy cloak, woven from whispered invocations to saints and ancestral spirits. Midwives, the unsung custodians of this risky frontier, invoked the divine by candlelight, sprinkling holy water on labouring mothers, praying their hands would be steady in the face of mortal danger. These events unfolded in dim rooms thick with the smells of sweat, incense and herbs meant to soothe and ward off evil. Birth without complication was a rarity, and with medical science barely a budding concept, each delivery was indeed a battlefield. For mothers, childbirth was more peril than miracle, shadowed by the threats of fatal hemorrhage, infection or seizures. Survival was left to a precarious balance of primitive medical practices and fervent prayers. The grim realities of that time meant that less than half of these women would survive childbirth over their lifetime. Infant mortality was similarly high, prompting swift baptisms to protect the infant's souls from damnation. These baptisms, enacted almost immediately after birth, served as both an initiation into life and a safeguard against the inevitable spectre of death. In this precarious dance, midwives walked a line of reverence and suspicion. They possessed knowledge handed down through whispers and experience, yet they often teetered on the edge of being labelled witches. Despite their questionable status, they played a critical role, armed with bags full of pungent herbs, salves and talismans, each item a tool of spiritual and earthly medicine, layered with histories of both triumphs and failures. Motherhood was a paradox of blessing and burden. While bringing life into the world, women faced the constant spectre of death. They were expected to endure, to bring forth children who would carry their families forward despite personal peril. Surviving childbirth was just the beginning, as the demands of nurturing a fragile new life required daily attentiveness, leaving little room for anything else. Breastfeeding was essential, with no alternatives available. Each day mirrored the mysterious blessing of baptism, with mothers tasked with both physical and spiritual nurturing, a bond fortified by the harsh reality of medieval life. Infancy was a time suspended between spiritual grace and corporeal vulnerability. With peril lurking in every shadow, religious rituals became essential guides and shields. Baptism, often within hours of birth, acted as both faith's anchor and a protective embrace from the community, a collective hope that this fledgling life might defy death's grasp. Lacking the medical advancements we take for granted, families relied heavily on rituals and amulets to safeguard their young. Simple cloth helmets shielded soft heads, while wet nurses offered sustenance weaved with folk wisdom and a good dose of hope. In this world, baptism was urgent and laden with expectation. The ceremony was not just a family event, but a community affair. The celebration laced with anxiety that life might vanish like a candle's flame. Midwives occasionally stepped into priestly roles, baptizing infants when necessity demanded, with holy water imbued with desperation's fervour. Such rites were not mere insurance, but profound affirmations of hope, recorded in church ledgers as lyrical promises of fragility met with eternity. The rituals of protection illustrate an era steeped in the mystical. Amulets and anointments played an integral role, believed to be genuine shields against malevolent forces. Cribs were adorned with sacred charms, and relics dangled from wooden frames, whispering salvation. These acts of precaution extended beyond superstition, touching upon a sincere belief in the divine presence, binding mortal existence with an ethereal thread. For children who survived the treacherous path to childhood, life remained a delicate balance of vulnerability and fleeting joys. The spectre of mortality haunted even the young, interweaving a tapestry of games and responsibilities. Communal life imposed early maturity, with children quickly taking on roles to aid family sustenance. Learning was often a privilege of the wealthy, leaving most to learn practical survival from their mothers. However, faith and tradition continued to guide, as children gradually became part of rituals and sacred practices, ingraining them with cultural narratives and spiritual significance. Amidst this tumultuous life, godparents served as more than ceremonial figures. They were guardians beyond the womb. Their selection was deliberate, embodying a broader commitment to both temporal and spiritual care for their godchildren, reinforcing the social fabric. Godparents were not merely symbolic, they provided a haven in times of familial strife, embodying faith-fueled kinship and an enduring bond forged in the crucible of medieval uncertainty. Through all this, life in the Middle Ages remained an enigmatic dance between the earthly and the sacred, with every event shaped by a celestial narrative. Mortality was a transient journey through which each individual's deeds resonated against eternal implications. In a world where God's will was ever present, life was a testimony to divine orchestration, its trials and joys painting a larger mosaic, tethered between the hope of heaven and the mystery of existence. In medieval times, marriage was more often than not a strategic maneuver rather than a matter of the heart. Families saw it as a necessary transaction, a means to weave alliances and secure lands. Noble families negotiated unions almost as if arranging pieces on a social chessboard, their children's futures determined before they would even grasp the concept of love. Marriage contracts were penned when the participants were just children, sealing allegiances between families who viewed their offspring as assets in a complex web of power and influence. These alliances brought stability in a world that was anything but, offering a predictability as comforting as it was confining. Even at the lower levels of society, where peasants toiled under the sun's glare and the rain's relentless patter, marriage was more necessity than choice. Driven by practicality, families chose partners based on the labour they could share, ensuring survival and productivity in their gritty corner of the world. A good marriage meant more hands to till the soil and shared responsibilities. Yet, amid the pragmatic reasons for these unions, seeds of companionship and tenderness could sometimes sprout unexpectedly. Love, though not the foundation, found its way into the cracks of these carefully constructed alliances. Though the scene was set by duty, Finding love within arranged marriages wasn't as impossible as it might seem. As couples navigated their shared lives, affection often took root in the routine of everyday tasks. Baking bread or mending tools together created moments of laughter and levity. Through these mundane activities, partners discovered quirks and qualities in one another that transformed mere coexistence into genuine affection. Over time, these bonds, born from necessity, grew into something that transcended the original strategic intents of families standing as silent witnesses to the power of companionship in a world governed by survival. For nobles, the world of emotions often found a parallel expression in the art of courtly love. This elaborate societal dance involved poetry, song, and courtship, directed distinctly away from marital partners. While noble marriages were performed in the public eye, behind closed doors, billets doux and longing glances spoke a language of their own. Women clandestinely penned poems to express emotions hidden beneath layers of duty. Longing captured between lines meant for discreet eyes. This literature became a sanctuary, offering nobility a refuge for feelings they dared not acknowledge openly. In contrast, peasant life, harsh and unyielding, often contained promises of affection forged in labour's fire. Unlike their noble counterparts constrained by alliances, peasants could catch glimpses of their potential partners before marriage. The rhythm of shared chores, harvesting fields, caring for livestock, raising children, offered a backdrop where personal bonds could grow deep and true. As peasant couples developed mutual trust and reliance, love became an expression of their shared struggles. Through humility, humour, and a strange sort of romance found amid adversity, these partnerships crafted a tapestry of resilience, and a genuine fondness seeped into the fabric of their lives. Within noble courts and secret romances thrived alongside the formalities of arranged unions, their allure enhanced by the risks they posed. Love outside marriage was a bold defiance against tradition, igniting the imagination and daring the societal norms of the time. The tales of these forbidden affections, whispered among confidants, captured in clandestine meetings, both enchanted and scandalised society. These romances, adorned in song and poetry, revealed the human desire to connect beyond the constraints of duty and conformity. Amid exceptions were stories of individuals navigating societal structures to form partnerships based on mutual consent, charting paths not paved by obligation. This defiance, rare but powerful, reshaped narratives and offered hope. When family duties didn't dictate the terms of union, emotions blossomed in the spaces created by choice. Their stories, illuminated by the freedom of mutual respect and admiration, defied the rigid scripts of their time and continue to resonate as instances of love transcending societal expectations. Yet amid such strength, medieval love was vulnerable to the relentless uncertainties of the age. War, disease, and distant travels tore apart many, leaving only echoes in hearts and songs, their voices filled with longing. These separated lovers poured their pain into art and pleas to the divine, hoping love's thread could bind what fate had torn. The tales of absent partners, carried by minstrels and immortalised in verse, narrated the sorrow of love stunted by circumstance, tethered to dreams of reunion in realms beyond the mortal coil. In reflecting on the nature of love during those times, it becomes clear that love's many faces found ways to emerge amid adversity. Love etched itself into the everyday language of life, entwining personal enterprise with cultural fabric. Examined through today's lens, these narratives offer insight into human resilience, highlighting how the heart defies constraints, navigates adversity, and thrives in fleeting moments of connection. Medieval love, as complex as life itself, echoes still, reminding us of its enduring power to inspire, challenge, and connect souls across the chasms of time. In the tapestry of the Middle Ages, where life was tethered tightly to the Church's teachings, desire found itself under the heavy thumb of religious doctrine. The Church, wielding immense influence, cast a scrutinizing eye on matters of the flesh, viewing lust as a perilous gate to hell itself. Sermons echoed through stone cathedrals, warning of the soul's peril should it succumb to earthly temptations. Sex was ordained only within marriage, its sole noble purpose to populate Christendom, wrapping intimacy in layers of fear and repentance. This instilled a cultural burden of guilt, embedding a collective unease about human instincts that would unfurl for centuries. Yet despite such tight ecclesiastical reins, desire's tendrils reached places unseen and ungoverned. Behind cloistered walls, the heart's yearning often defied prescribed norms, seeking solace in secret letters and shadowed corners. Festivals, with their vibrant chaos, provided a temporary cloak under which passions could freely flourish. The Church's formidable rules, while daunting, could not entirely snuff out the embers of longing that flickered quietly beneath society's surface. Stories of clandestine affairs dotted chronicles of the time, weaving tales of noble knights and guarded ladies who risked power and reputation for whispering moments of forbidden affection. For the nobility, such affairs were more than scandalous. They were dangerous. Adulterous liaisons threatened to shake alliances formed by strategic marriages, making love not just a private rebellion, but a public hazard. Though the Church thundered against the sinfulness of such acts, literature and art often romanticized them, immortalizing these desires with troubadours' songs and courtly poems that painted them as epic quests of the heart. Through this lens, the allure of the forbidden turned irresistibly intoxicating, a dance along the knife's edge between passion and peril. And in medieval cities where faith stood front line, another reality pulsed just beneath the surface. The existence of brothels, with their whispered allure, told a contradictory tale of a society that preached abstinence while pragmatically accommodating its inevitable breaches. These establishments, in some locales, were even sanctioned by local governments to maintain social order, revealing a complex acceptance of desire's grip. Within brothel walls, the constraints of morality seemed to slacken, allowing for indulgence in the very impulses publicly decried. The women who worked there, often from lower social castes, occupied a paradoxical status, necessary yet scorned. Their lives captured the dissonance of a society trying to stifle desires while dependent on their existence. These women provided not only carnal satisfaction, but also a form of companionship that transcended transactional boundaries, exposing the intertwined realities of human need and societal denial. Amidst this complex landscape, courtly love emerged as a unique cultural phenomenon. This tradition enshrined longing as an idealized pursuit, where knights idolized noble women through song and poetry, elevating romance to a near-sacred engagement, more of the spirit than of the body. Such love was paradoxically chaste and unattainable, allowing for emotional depth while cloaked in the guise of virtue. Here was a vision of love that dared to intertwine sanctity with desire, creating a genteel escape for those navigating the strictures of duty. Despite stories of secret love scorned by the Church's edicts, marriage, too, became a stage where human affections played out with a tender resilience. For the nobility, Unions were predetermined strategies to consolidate power and wealth. However, in the quiet of hearth and home, genuine bonds often unexpectedly flourished. Chronicles tell of mutual respect turning gradually to affection, adding a heartfelt twist to the formal dance of duty. For peasants less entangled in the web of political machinations, marriage allowed more natural interweaving of love and life's labours. Partners toiled side by side, their lives bearing witness to both joys and sorrows shared, knitting bonds that provided both emotional respite and reaffirmation amidst harsh daily realities. Even under the watchful eyes of religious oversight, love proved itself resilient, a quiet rebellion of hope against the backdrop of chore and conformity. Desire also spilled into the realm of medieval literature, sowing seeds in the imagination of scribes who dared to pen tales of lust and longing. These narratives held a mirror to society, sometimes upholding and sometimes challenging the moral fabric through allegory and satire. Works like the Canterbury Tales explored these themes with a daring flair, questioning norms yet entertaining with the gallows humour that history often reveals. Yet amidst this potent mixture of carnal and spiritual longing, mysticism offered its double-edged view. Many mystics described their ecstatic experiences in rapturous language, suggestive of the erotic, as visions of divine love intertwined soulfully with earthly metaphor. Such expressions suggested a hidden acknowledgement of desire's duality, a bridge to the divine, even within the austere confines of religious orthodoxy. In essence, desire threaded through the entire social hierarchy, a potent force that shaped alliances and personal destinies alike. The noble allure, the peasant's affection, the courtesan's subtle rebellion, all illuminated the enduring nature of human attraction. Regardless of the heavy yoke of tradition and creed, the stories of the Middle Ages remind us that human hearts, ever seeking connection, could not be wholly restrained by scripture or society. The passions of an age long gone still resonate, echoing through history as a testament to the resilient spirit of desire. In the medieval world, disease was an unyielding companion, entwined with daily life. Fevers raged, sparing none, old or young. Tumours lurked silently, indiscriminately appearing across all societal boundaries. The cold, damp air of cramped living spaces carried the ominous echo of hacking coughs, symptoms of simple colds, or the deadlier grasp of tuberculosis. Women faced peril in childbirth, often succumbing to childbed fever, birth becoming a battlefield where life and death were tightly knit. Disease did not visit in brief, terrifying bursts, but settled in the bones of existence, an omnipresent hum of dread. Each cough or pain could signal something more sinister. Yet this spectre was more than physical. It bore spiritual significance. To many, illness was a message from God or a dark whisper from the devil. It was a canvas on which sins and virtues were painted. Some saw diseases as a chance for atonement or a test of faith from on high. Through this intertwining of body and spirit, the ceaseless march of disease shaped medieval minds, infusing existence with profound meaning. In this world steeped in fervent belief, sickness carried the gravity of heavenly judgment. The devastation wrought by the Black Death was interpreted as divine retribution for humanity's sins. Preachers thundered of God's wrath, purifying the world through plagues purging fires. In every ailment, souls discerned a blend of punishment and redemption. But when such acts seemed too severe, the blame shifted to Satan, believed to inflict illness as a test or snare. Common maladies took on an air of supernatural malevolence, thought to be the devil's handiwork or witchcraft's curse. Spiritual remedies, from prayers to exorcisms, accompanied physical treatment, blurring lines between the infernal and divine in every affliction. Enduring sickness was not merely survival of the body, it demanded spiritual resilience. Suffering was seen as refining, drawing souls closer to divine grace. Tales exist of pious souls enduring pain with no complaint, their suffering mirroring Christ's own trials. The hagiographies often featured saints beset by miraculous ailments, their trials a ladder to spiritual heights. This outlook offered comfort amid agony, encouraging the sick to perceive their pain as sacred endurance, a testament to faith's fortitude. Caring for the ill, then, became a communal act, blending moral duty with spiritual opportunity. As caregivers offered compassion, they accrued their own spiritual merit. Illness was both personal crucible and communal thread, affecting social ties and moral structures. When epidemics struck, medieval responses were communal and spiritually fervent, not isolating. Churches brimmed with prayers for divine intervention, rituals of penance sought to placate perceived wrath. Entire cities engaged in acts of collective contrition, believing that self-inflicted pain might avert divine displeasure. Despite limited medical knowledge, communities rallied around the sick, not divided by the fear of contagion we might expect. From shared meals to companionship, these acts, while inadvertently spreading disease, strengthened societal bonds. Epidemics revealed the depth of communal spirit, forging ties amid crises, uniting in the face of common adversity. Medical care in this era was deeply ritualistic, blending the sacred and the practical. The Church was as involved in medicine as it was in salvation. Remedies mixed herbal lore with incantations. Priests stood beside physicians. Holy oils and prayers often overshadowed the mere application of herbs. Medicine was woven with spiritual intent, portraying saviours within healers, a tapestry vivid with faith. Being ill bore social consequences beyond the immediate suffering. Leprosy symbolised sin's physical manifestation, confining sufferers to isolation, marking them as spiritually unclean. Fear of leprosy hovered like a shadow over social interactions. Mental illnesses, misunderstood and attributed to divine or demonic origins, saw the afflicted oscillate between veneration and fear. Society's response often dictated isolation, separating the clean from the tainted. Stories spun from suffering permeated culture, carrying moral tales through oral traditions. Disease transfigured the ordinary, casting sufferers as martyrs or pariahs, their afflictions chapters in moral sagas. Chronicles of ailments intertwined with spirituality and cultural storytelling, glimpses of which persist through fragmented records. Medicine and miracles shared tales with a bard's touch, illustrating a time when the boundary between reality and legend blurred. Amidst contradictions, medieval healing practices treaded the line between innovative and absurd. Advanced methods sat awkwardly with superstitions. Bloodletting aimed for balance, blind to germ theory, blessings mixed with surgery by shaven-headed barbers. Astrology guided physicians more than science. Today's view might mock such methods, but earnest attempts to understand the dark reality bridged science and mysticism. For many, hope lay in motion, journeys to sacred sites for miraculous cures. Sick pilgrims embarked on arduous treks, faith in shrines' blessings their beacon. Tales of healing fueled belief and community spirit, despite journeys often ending with spiritual solace more than physical relief. These endeavours showcased indomitable human spirit seeking salvation beyond ailments. The experience of illness diverged starkly across classes. Peasants leaned on local remedies, illness a notch in their ongoing survival battle, tempered with faith and communal closeness. Nobles accessed learned physicians and exotic cures, travelling far for divine intervention. Yet across class lines, disease invoked divine interpretation, a common thread beneath the disparities. Whether peasant or noble, all faced the shared shadow of disease, navigating through a world of spirits and salvation. In the shadowed streets of medieval towns, a visit to the barber surgeon was as much about necessity as it was about enduring the raw, unvarnished nature of medieval healthcare. These curious hybrids weren't just cutting hair, they wielded blades for surgeries, yanked teeth out, and applied leeches with an artistry as much gruesome as it was essential. The air around them carried a metallic tang, the floor often splattered with reminders of humanity's frailty. Lacking in formal education, barber surgeons operated on a blend of guild teachings and apprenticeship, relying on experience and stories passed down through generations. Every incision was a gamble, an act of courage on the part of both patient and surgeon, a dance with death wrapped in the fragile hope of healing. Meanwhile, the apothecary's vibrant shops offered a different kind of mystery, exuding an aromatic symphony of herbs and elixirs. Stepping inside, one was greeted by rows of glass jars glowing dimly in candlelight, shelves bending under the weight of both local flora and the exotic. These artisans stood as the bridge between official medicine and folk tradition, their potions crafted with ingredients as ordinary as chamomile or as bizarre as dried animal parts. Each remedy concocted told tales of past successes etched in the minds of those who mixed them, a testament to alchemy where folklore danced with scientific exploration. Their work, filled with a secretive charm, existed in a realm where tradition and anecdote reigned over empirical evidence, providing remedies that were often the final shield against death's swift advance. Within the hushed corridors of grand churches, faith intertwined with health as believers sought the miraculous touch of sacred relics. Pilgrims would journey, bodies weary and spirits heavy, to touch fragments of saints believed to channel divine mercy. Bones, scraps of cloth, or droplets of blood, enshrined in gilded reliquaries, were held with reverence and desperation. These artifacts wove together stories of hope and miraculous healing, drawing the faithful into a world where divine intervention was a viable cure when earthly solutions faltered. Such faith-filled endeavours transformed simple bones into conduits of hope, a reminder that, in the Middle Ages, medicine was a tapestry woven with the threads of memory and belief. On the fringes of towns where wise women and learned monks dwelled, the whisper of herbs spoke its own language. These plants, seen not just as remedies but as bearers of the earth's healing secrets, were brewed into potions that soothed bodies and quieted souls. Healers practiced an intuitive craft, drawing from the natural world and the rhythm of the seasons. This knowledge was sacred, passed down through generations, a testament to humanity's enduring bond with nature. The process of crafting these remedies was as significant as the outcome, with whispered spells and incantations believed to strengthen the plant's curative powers, weaving magic into their earthy compositions. Central to this enigmatic landscape was bloodletting, reflecting a belief in balancing the body's humours: blood, phlegm, black bile, and yellow bile. This practice, enacted with leeches or blades, was seen as a means to restore harmony within the body, endorsed even by learned physicians. While modern eyes might see this as primitive, Within its context, it was a genuine attempt to grapple with illness. The practice persisted across social strata, a shared ritual amidst the disparity of wealth, influenced by ancient wisdom, and yet untouched by modern science. Further complicating the celestial mosaic were the stars themselves, guiding medieval health practices through astrology. Physicians and healers alike consulted the cosmos, aligning treatments with the moon's phases and the celestial movements. Astrology carved its niche in medieval medicine, offering comfort through the belief that the heavens bore influence over earthly health. This belief system, intertwining the tangible with the ethereal, painted a world where timing and cosmic order were as crucial to healing as potions or prayers. Among the more curious practices was the use of mystical stones, believed to harbour healing powers. Toadstones and bloodstones, popular in folk medicine, promise protection and recovery. These stones straddled the line between magic and medicine, bearing the weight of folklore. They were talismans that filled voids left by scientific understanding, their vibrant colours and mythical origins offering reassurance amidst suffering and the unforeseen whims of fate. Medieval physicians, educated in the intellectual hubs of Paris and Salerno, negotiated these vast unknowns with the burgeoning tools of formalism and inquiry. Despite their esteemed learning, they faced limitations bound by theories untouched by modern scrutiny. They navigated a precarious balance of authority, their treatments often more arcane than pragmatic. Through this murky tapestry of medicine, differences in care for the rich and the poor were stark. Nobles enjoyed a retinue of physicians and luxurious treatments, while peasants relied on community knowledge and folk healers. Yet, from these intimate beginnings, medieval medicine sowed the seeds for future enlightenment, laying fragile groundwork for the scientific revolution. Its strange, bloodied legacy shapes the medical landscape even now, a testament to humanity's relentless pursuit of understanding health amidst the mysteries of existence. In the Middle Ages, the tolling of church bells was more than mere sound. It was the heartbeat of daily life, marking the hours and easing day into night. The relentless rhythm of matins and vespers echoed the spiritual cadence that guided medieval existence, intertwining faith and daily life. Monasteries upheld this pattern, where monks devoted themselves to the liturgy of the hours, punctuating each day with worship and reflection. These chimes defined not only religious obligations but social structures, meals, rest and curfews. Faith was an omnipresent force, weaving a shared tapestry through which people collectively navigated existence amidst the ceaseless roar of uncertainty. Life unfolded as a continuous divine dialogue, a chance for reflection, a quest for survival in a chaotic world. This rhythm offered solace and unity, a collective consciousness shared in prayer, drawing individuals closer to a divine order and each other. Saints populated this celestial framework as spiritual companions, each wielding a unique charm. Their specialties made the divine personal. Saint Apollonia for aching teeth, or Saint Christopher safeguarding weary travellers. This rich tapestry of intercession intertwined with daily life, where saints were as familiar as family, guiding and guarding against life's perennial precarities in exchange for a whispered prayer or a promised pilgrimage. The lives of these saints, heroically embellished across generations, symbolize the tangible presence of divinity in the earthly realm. The Church's encouragement of their veneration through relics, feasts, and pilgrimages cultivated a vibrant tradition. This ongoing exchange between mortal and celestial provided comfort, a bridge across the divide between heaven and earth. Amid the saints, the Virgin Mary stood sovereign. More than a mediator, she was heaven's queen, embodying purity and maternal grace, her image omnipresent in the art and iconography of the era. The Virgin's reach extended beyond cathedral walls into the very fabric of medieval life. Prayers and hymns carried her name, her compassion, a gentle balm for humanity's rough existence. The Church heralded her presence through grand cathedrals and feast days, while individuals, especially women, sought her divine comfort in their endeavours, drawing strength to endure life's brutal truths from the serenity she promised. Yet as they sought solace, constant vigilance against the devil's allure shadowed their days. Medieval people lived under the spectre of sin, with tales of diabolic temptations making misfortune all too comprehensible. Hellfire sermons and morality plays painted the devil vividly, cautioning against moral missteps as invitations to demonic influence. In this dance of divinity and danger, vigilance against sin was paramount, a communal effort to combat the spectre of damnation. Pilgrimages emerged as both an act of devotion and a test of faith, journeys fraught with danger yet rich in spiritual reward. Traversing diverse landscapes, pilgrims bound for Santiago de Compostela or Jerusalem felt the sting of every thorn and blisters in every mile. These sacred travels were a metaphor for the medieval spiritual journey itself, full of trials yet replete with divine promise and communal camaraderie. Carrying communal hopes and personal redemption, their adventures paralleled humanity's eternal quest for divine proximity. From the very moment of baptism, rites of passage punctuated life's significant milestones, each a symbolic rite of passage between earthly struggles and divine aspirations. Baptism sealed a newborn into the Christian fold, urgent in a time when infant mortality loomed large. Death, no stranger, entered with ritual gravity as the sacraments of extreme unction eased the soul's transition. These communal events not only strengthened social bonds, but affirmed the continuous narrative of life interwoven with faith's grace. Salvation and damnation presented the ultimate moral framework. Heaven promised relief from worldly travails, its beauty a beacon against hell's lurid fires, branding moral vigilance into the societal ethos. Vivid depictions in sermons and art kept the message unequivocal. Faith's dichotomy demanded an existential commitment to virtue, echoing the Church's teachings that life's mortal actions engraved eternity's fate. Monasteries became sanctuaries of devotion, bastions of learning and ascetic pursuit. Vivid images of a life striving toward divine order amidst worldly chaos. Guided by rules of stability and obedience, monks pursued sacred truths, their scriptoria buzzing with the whispers of pens, keeping alive religion and knowledge. As centres of education and charity, monastic regimes offered temporal refuge and preparations for eternity, aspirations of the divine amidst earthly shadows. Yet amid assurances, the spectre of heresy cast long shadows on the landscape of faith, challenging orthodoxy and prompting fierce inquisitions. The Church's grip was reinforced through trials and discourse, revealing the intricate power dynamics within faith's domain. Heresy and orthodoxy merged into a complex dialogue, displaying faith as fluid and disputed, yet always striving for divine clarity. In this intensely spiritual domain, relics bridged the tangible and transcendent, wielding divine influence through artifacts infused with sacred power. Believers across Europe venerated these pieces, longing for miracles amidst the relic's encased splendour. They infused local pride and identity, binding community and faith through an encounter with the sacred, grounding the divine firmly within the everyday. As this chapter draws to a close, consider how faith shaped the medieval world in ways both strange and familiar. If this glimpse into medieval life piqued your interest or made you wince, do us a favour. Like and subscribe. Here at Medieval Grime, we savour history's grittiness. Until next time, stay curious and grimy. Chapter 7. Death was closer than breath. In the medieval world, death lingered like an ever-present shadow, haunting every cobbled street and winding road. Life was precarious, a delicate dance between fate and faith, where few survived past the age of 40. Disease, famine and war whittled down the population, and mortality rates were staggeringly high. Even the seemingly robust and youthful were not spared. A fever could claim a child before a mother's prayers had cooled. Outbreaks ravaged entire villages, leaving bodies to pile faster than the gravediggers could respond. This proximity to death did not spark terror. Instead, it bred a kind of resigned faith. Those who lived felt themselves blessed or simply not yet called to their appointed end, and so they savoured joy with reverent intensity, knowing it was but a brief acquaintance. Life's volatility meant that any ailment, a simple cough, an unnoticed cut, could escalate into a fatal condition. Childbirth often turned rooms of eager anticipation into scenes of heartbreak. The absence of advanced medical care left families to lean on each other, weaving a network of shared mourning and remembrance. In this unpredictable reality, the suddenness of death shaped a culture that emphasized the art of farewell, infusing it with spiritual significance and social obligation. Farewell was not just personal, it was collective. Communities gathered to murmur shared prayers, their voices rising in a poignant chorus as they reaffirmed bonds shaped by shared loss. It was here, in the crucible of unpredictability, where farewells became a ritualistic narrative, a harmonious blend of visitations and internal reflections, symbolising both an ending and a preparation for eternity. Death was not simply an end, but a transition from this temporary world to one eternal. The observance of last rites marked this transition, casting a spiritual net to guide the soul from earthly confines to heavenly expanses. Confession and the Eucharist as viaticum, the blessing of extreme unction, all were steps in this solemn ceremony that sought to cleanse and console. Last rites were administered with urgency, priests summoned in haste to offer solace against the inexorable approach of divine judgment. This ritual, an orchestration of spirituality and social reassurance, reminded the living of the necessity for preparedness and the comfort of community as they faced the inevitable. Medieval culture abounded with symbols and superstitions about death, covering mirrors, placing coins on the eyes of the deceased, turning over chairs. Each gesture was steeped in mysticism, aimed at aiding the soul's journey and protecting the living from spectral return. Fears of revenants or malevolent spirits of the dead shaped burial practices. East to west grave orientations echoed the path of divine light, and graves often held items for ensuring restful eternity. Amulets, charms, bells, all played their part in these beliefs, reflecting deeper fears and the fascination with death. Public mourning took on a communal form. When death arrived, communities mourned together, wrapping themselves in ritualistic sorrow and solidarity. Wakes turned into social gatherings, with food, drink and storytelling, ensuring the deceased departed with not only tears, but laughter and love. Mourning garb, a visible token of grief, strengthened these bonds, as black or simple robes transformed personal sorrow into communal expression. This collective fervour in mourning was vital in an age riddled with loss, sewing together the fabric of social cohesion through shared experiences and rituals, enhancing the sense of continuity amidst life's unstable journey. Death played no favourites. It was the great leveller, choosing noble and peasant alike. Yet the ceremonies diverged, with nobles often surrounded by opulence in death, elaborate funerals flaunting their status, while peasants faced simpler, pragmatic rites. Yet death neutralised all worldly discrepancies, marking transformation, a passage where all earthly status was left behind. This parity underscored life's fleeting nature, where rituals honoured the memory of lives, irrespective of social standing. The art of dying well, or ars moriendi, was central to medieval society. Spiritual piety and ethical conduct were encouraged to meet death with dignity. Guides detailed ways to manage fear, and one's final moments with grace. Good deeds, confession, and a holy life prepared souls for a good death, orienting them towards paradise. Beyond spiritual readiness lay practical obligations. Wills were made, disputes settled. Death was a time for reconciliation, ensuring peace for the departed and reducing strife for the living. This art of dying imbued life with purpose, introspective preparation for the last journey, a test wrapped in faith and foresight. Knights experienced death not in peace, but amidst the battlefield's chaos. Warfare was honour's crucible, valiant death linked to eternal remembrance, yet their bodies lay far from home, receiving hasty burials, if any. Nonetheless, their stories endured, the sacrifices marking fealty and valour. Even in death, they retained their place in history, enshrined in collective memory. A powerful symbol of courage, echoed through the songs of old. Amidst death's shadow rose the veneration of saints, seeking guidance and intercession. Saints' relics offered comfort, a heavenly advocate ensuring not only forgiveness, but divine escort to the kingdom beyond. Pilgrimages to shrines provided spiritual armour, fortifying the soul's journey past life's veil. This belief inspired acts of piety, instilled courage, cemented moral frameworks, illuminating individuals' passage from mortal toil to eternal rest with faith and fraternity. Graves held sacred rest, reflecting earthly life and spiritual aspiration. Cemeteries adjacent to churches enveloped the deceased in sanctity. Nobles enjoyed church burials, closer to divine presence, while the less affluent rested in family plots, cementing bonds with the living. The grave stood as a testament to life's duality, earth below, heaven beyond, capturing and transcending the odyssey from birth to breath's last whisper. In the medieval world, women's lives unfolded within a tapestry of dual roles, at home and beyond, where domestic and economic contributions intertwined. Within the walls of their homes, women tirelessly orchestrated the rhythm of daily life. Their hands deftly managed the hearth, turning simple ingredients into meals that nourished families through the relentless march of seasons. They skillfully manipulated spindle and loom, weaving textiles that clothed bodies and swaddled infants against the chill of night's breath. But beyond the confines of hearth and home, their influence extended outward. In the fields, women worked alongside men, sowing seeds and reaping the harvest, their sweat mingling with the earth in rural symphony. In towns, some women engaged in trade and crafts, standing proudly in markets where goods exchanged hands and their voices contributed to the cacophony of commerce. In this bustling medieval landscape, one endeavour stood out: brewing. The production of ale was primarily a woman's domain, and as alewives, they commanded both respect and authority. The brewing process rendered ale safer than water, and a successful alewife could carve out financial independence, her earnings granting her leverage and influence. Yet, like any tale woven with threads of triumph, there were twists. Alewives faced scrutiny, subject to public tastings and regulations that could turn a well-brewed batch into a source of ridicule if standards faltered. This delicate balancing act of brewing power and societal scrutiny exemplified the tightrope women walked. Meanwhile, in a maternal role of deep significance, midwives accompanied life into the world, serving as guardians of birth and custodians of fragile new beginnings. With their knowledge of herbs and birthing techniques, midwives were essential in navigating the precarious path of childbirth. Yet, the medieval era's steeped superstitions cast shadows over their esteemed positions. Complications during delivery could incite fears of witchcraft, leaving midwives precariously perched between reverence and suspicion. Despite this, their wisdom passed through generations, nurturing a network of women quietly defying patriarchal structures. For noble women, castles became enclaves of influence in the absence of husbands. Often away at court or war, they managed estates, dictated strategies, oversaw finances, and defended fortresses with resolute grace. Here in these halls echoing with power, they navigated law, commerce, and diplomacy. Their presence as rulers undeniable, yet always tied to male frameworks of authority. Their skillful negotiations reshaped alliances, but their achievements were frequently attributed to the shadow of male counterparts. Still, many noble women leveraged these roles, subtly weaving influence both within and beyond stone walls. Yet outside these castles, the lives of peasant women unfolded under different skies. Backbone to agrarian communities, they toiled in fields and embraced back-breaking labour, their sweat nurturing the land and feeding towns and villages. Peasant women managed livestock, cooked meals, and sewed clothes, their hands crafting the essential fabric of daily survival. Despite the hardships, they forged networks of mutual aid and solidarity, finding companionship in shared struggles. Their narratives may barely pierce historical records, but their resilience carved deep grooves in the soil of medieval life, ensuring communities thrived when times were harsh. Meanwhile, religion offered women a paradoxical refuge, an escape to sanctuaries within convents, where education thrived and spiritual authority grew. Nuns wielded influence within cloistered walls, and as abbesses, they governed vast lands and resources, their voices a powerful testament to female agency. Beyond convents, the visions of female mystics reverberated, echoing through churches and villages. Yet divergence from accepted doctrines bore dire consequences. Women labelled heretics faced imprisonment and execution, a stark reminder of the perilous boundaries between sacred and condemned. In the legal realm, medieval women navigated a precarious balance, protected yet restricted. Laws dictated their existence, with scant room for agency in public matters. Widows enjoyed greater freedoms, inheriting and managing their households, sidestepping societal constraints. Women ingeniously manoeuvred the legal landscape, orchestrating marriages and alliances that stealthily circumvented restrictions. Court records bear witness to their persistent participation, highlighting the paradox of a legally disadvantaged group exercising surprising autonomy. Education was yet another domain where women's access varied. Noble women delved into studies of management and literature, their knowledge equipping them to oversee estates and entertain with grace. Convents buzzed with intense learning, nurturing nuns in theology and philosophy. Peasant women, in contrast, learned through oral traditions and hands-on experience, their knowledge of herbs and crafts forming an immense, yet often unrecognised repository of wisdom. These women, masters of practical knowledge, sustained communities, their skills vital for survival. Yet amidst these histories of survival and resilience, women's voices frequently slipped into silence, their stories obscured. Historical records scarcely capture the breadth of their contributions, leaving many narratives untold. Noble women might pen letters or commission works, but most stories withered in the patriarchal shadow. However, women's legacies persist, preserved in folklore and tradition, their whispers emerging as scholars reinterpret history's layers. The resilience of medieval women echoes through time, their contributions woven into society's very framework, an enduring testament to human courage and tenacity. In the medieval village, life was tightly woven into the fabric of the liturgical calendar. It was more than just a system of dates. It was a rhythm that dictated not only religious observance, but also cultural and agricultural activities. Unlike our disjointed modern calendar, the medieval one spoke to villagers with the authority of saints' feast days and periods of holy fasting, binding them to a shared schedule of joy and solemnity. Every season ushered in a new phase in the sacred tapestry, offering continuity and predictability in an unpredictable world. Celebrations like Easter and Christmas transcended the realm of the divine, bringing laughter and connection that crossed social barriers. The air was filled with the scents of roasted meats and sweetmeats, a welcome escape from the daily grind of bread and porridge. Fast periods flipped this indulgence on its head. Simple meals marked times of spiritual purification and reflected the need to stretch communal food supplies as far as possible. This alternating rhythm of feast and fast infused life with texture. One moment dissolving hierarchies in communal joy, the next binding them back with the stringency of piety and penance. Among these routines, the milestones of life, baptisms, marriages, and funerals, stood out, underscoring both individual triumphs and communal bonds. A baptism in a medieval village was not just a baptism, it was a celebration of survival against the odds and an affirmation of divine favour. Families, despite scarce resources, turned these into feasts intertwined with joy and public spectacle. Marriages, on the other hand, were instances of social theatre. These unions were less about intimacy and more about forging strategic alliances with economic and social considerations at their heart. In death, the village gathered again, not just to mourn, but to affirm life's fragility and the strength of their communal bonds, reminding everyone that each personal milestone was part of a communal narrative etched in shared memory. Life in the village revolved around the harvest. This cycle of planting and reaping, dictated by seasons, was a dance of sustenance, celebrated in festivals like Lammas and Harvest Home. These were as much about the blessing of survival as the food on the tables, a testament to divine will and the hard work of a united community. Villagers danced and sang, blurring the line between reverence and revelry, both physically and spiritually grateful. Here the sacred and the mundane met, as offerings of labour bore the fruit of laughter and shared meals, affirming an intimate relationship with the earth. In a world measured by capricious nature, the villagers found certainty in superstition and faith. The air was thick with signs, a sudden storm, an unexpected rainbow. each a potential portent of divine mood. It was not enough to witness these events. Villagers felt compelled to act on them, believing these cosmic messages held power over fate itself. Superstitions were no abstract notion, but a natural part of daily decision-making, providing guidance in their journey through an unpredictable world where every turn could spell trial or salvation. Tied closely to these beliefs was the ever-present dance of death, an idea both macabre and strangely comforting. It underscored that death was the great leveller, sparing none. The dance of death motif. Skeletons lead in the living, adorned churches and manuscripts, a constant memento mori accompanying every joy and trial. Rather than a grim fixation, it was an exercise in humility and unity, a reminder of life's brevity woven into the fabric of existence. Rituals were more than markers of time. They were events that defined communal identity. Gatherings and festivals became vital narratives that reinforced the social structure. Through shared storytelling and participation, the village maintained cohesion, resisting the isolating threats of hardship. Different social classes melted briefly into one during celebrations, ingraining a shared identity essential for survival in a world where isolation was perilous. The spirits of ancestors rested invisibly in the air, casting a long shadow over the present. Rituals and traditions of times past served as a living foundation, their wisdom a guiding hand. During rituals like Samhain or All Hallows' Eve, the line between worlds blurred, and offerings linked the living directly with the wisdom of those who came before. This reverence for the past built a continuum, where ancestral wisdom moulded present actions and anchored hopes. As the earth shook off winter's cloak, spring arrived like a beacon promising renewal. With vibrant festivals like Beltane, villagers celebrated the warmth of sunlit days, with dances, bonfires and floral garlands, marking not just the earth's rejuvenation, but a renewal of human spirit. These rites were rooted in ancient traditions, yet carried deep Christian meanings, a testament to life's resilience in each blade of new grass. Behind these rites, the clergy orchestrated the divine dance. Acting as intermediaries between heaven and earth, priests guided the timing and meaning of each ritual. Their role went beyond spiritual oversight. It was the clergy who shaped the rituals that governed communal life, ensuring that medieval society balanced human unpredictability against divine order. Through their stewardship, naturally occurring customs transcended tradition, becoming a sacred framework, knitting human experiences across the tapestry of time. In the medieval world, life and faith were woven together as seamlessly as the threads of a tapestry. People believed the tangible earth was merely a prelude to a more meaningful, spiritual continuation. Every aspect of existence, from the simplest daily task to the most sacred rituals, was a preparation for eternity. This dual reality meant that every waking moment required spiritual vigilance, interpreting omens and blessings alike. Church towers dominated city skylines, and chapels nestled in countryside valleys, casting a permanent shadow of divine presence over the land. Through the communal rhythms of liturgy and sacrament, the faithful remained ever conscious of their transient earthly existence and the looming promise of an eternal one, which hinged on adherence to church doctrine. In their upbringing, children were immersed in prayers and scripture, fundamentally understanding that each action weighed upon divine scales of judgment. Heaven sparkled in the medieval imagination as vividly as the stained glass depictions in churches, luminous scenes of angels in celestial harmony. It wasn't just a distant promise, but a vivid realm of tranquility and divine togetherness that motivated people to live piously, forever striving for paradise. These artistic visions reminded the faithful that beyond life's trials lay the warmth of eternal reward. Yet for every shimmering portrayal of heaven stood the menacing shadow of hell. Medieval depictions of hell were as gruesome and haunting as a storyteller's whispered cautionary tale by the fire. These images painted a terrifying picture of endless torment awaiting those who strayed from the righteous path, serving as a lingering reminder of the fine line between salvation and damnation. This stark dichotomy of reward versus punishment was deeply ingrained, guiding behaviour with an iron grip. Saints played a pivotal role in bridging earthly struggles and spiritual aspirations. Their lives were revered not just as examples of virtue, but as comforting tales of relatable figures who had faced and overcome human challenges. Pilgrims journeyed far and wide to touch relics and pray at shrines, seeking solace and miracles. This reverence felt like a personal connection to the divine. Saints seemed to walk beside them, whispering guidance and understanding. The reverence for saints manifested in festivities and processions that intertwined the sacred with daily life. They weren't just heavenly figures, but personal champions for causes, interceding in times of trouble and providing a sense of divine empathy. This connection wove seamlessly into the fabric of medieval life, where boundaries between human and divine blurred intriguingly. Yet wrapped tightly around this deep faith was a cloak of superstition. Medieval life hummed with practices and beliefs that existed in the margins between formal religion and folklore. Rituals meant to fend off evil spirits, charms for luck, and omens peered through the veil of church teachings. These beliefs were neither entirely accepted nor dismissed, but they spoke to the universal human desire for understanding and control in a world often ruled by the whims of fate. Superstitions complemented formal doctrine, filling the gaps where human fear and curiosity dwelled, crafting a vivid tapestry of charms and tales that offered comfort against the darkness beyond the flickering candlelight. Pilgrimages represented both physical and spiritual journeys, quests undertaken with the hope of redemption, forgiveness, or divine encounter. From the majestic cathedrals of Santiago to the distant echoes of Jerusalem, pilgrims trudged through sunlit fields and shadowed forests, each step a testament to faith. These journeys were tests of endurance, markers of devotion that mirrored life's spiritual trek. On the road, pilgrims forged bonds through shared hardships and sacred rites, weaving their personal stories into the grander narrative of faith. Life's rhythm, meanwhile, was dictated by the church calendar, a structure of sacred cycles that mapped the seasons with the solemnity of feast and fast. Every day resonated with sacredness, as time itself flowed in a liturgical dance that ordered life's chaos. Religious observances framed not just individual lives but entire communities, offering a constant in a world rife with uncertainty. These cycles stitched the temporal and divine together, reminding individuals that within the earth's momentary battles, divine constancy endured. However, medieval faith faced its own internal trials. Heresies and schisms emerged as splinters from the dominant religious tree, questioning and challenging the established order. Movements like the Cathars sought purer paths, igniting debates and sometimes persecution. This tension highlighted a spiritual restlessness, an ever-seeking quest for deeper authenticity within the confines of dogma. The arrival of the Black Death further strained this delicate fabric of belief. The plague ravaged indiscriminately, prompting cycles of fear and repentance. Amidst the desolation, the Church's role was both challenged and renewed. People questioned divine justice, yet clung to faith's comfort as a shield against despair. Even as the plague reeled under its onslaught, it sparked new dimensions of spirituality, blending deep personal devotion with broader ecclesiastical reform. In this medieval landscape, death loomed large, yet was not a terminal end but a profound transition. It scribed an urgency to live with an eye toward eternity. This pervasive awareness of mortality, underscored by artwork and literature, coloured life with an acceptance of life's impermanence and the soul's enduring significance. Through the flickering glow of medieval belief, an enduring legacy was forged, one that continues to echo through the corridors of modern faith, offering a timeless quest for meaning amidst life's ephemeral tapestry.